There we go. There we go. God damn. This is, what a bloody mess, eh? What a bloody mess. It's all right. Lewis is having updates, so it's all going absolutely swimmingly. But what we'll do is, while I get us sat back up in the background here, we'll just vibe. How's everyone getting on while I'm fixing this in the background? I don't think it would be wouldn't be Twitch streaming if something didn't go wrong, eh? Oh, fucking hell. The fun thing is, it's completely just removed all of my settings as well. That'll just do for now. That will do for now. That's going to have to just manage the background. High Elves leaked. It's disgusting. Where? One extra video to like. Richard, I appreciate you. Good stuff there. Updates can always be relied on to make things worse. So I've got a Steam Deck. And what happened was I pressed the button to transition between scenes. And when I transitioned between scenes, it crashed my entire Streamlabs, which is Nos Buenos. As in, well, that bloody sucks. I think as well. Hey, we've got Lewis. We have got Lewis. Fantastic stuff. So there's Lewis back. Lewis should be able to see
back?
Me. Should be able to hear me.
Back again.
Fantastic stuff.
Lewis is back. Hello, friend.
Hope I didn't quit my day job for this streaming thing. Unfortunately, my day job quit me.
I was going to say, you didn't technically quit, did you?
No, I really did not. I really did not. But we're back in business, I hope. Apologies for the break in your regularly scheduled stream.
We got this. It's all going well.
This. Yeah, I believe in the heart of the cards. Perfect stuff. Well, we were going to talk about your models, which I'm going to manually switch to the other thing. And if this if this crashes again, fuck it.
No one cares about necromancer conversions that much, Ed.
Absolutely. There we go. Perfect. So on screen, because Lewis can't see unless he has the stream open.
Yes, there it is. I see it. I'm just a few seconds behind.
No, that's fine. I won't change very quickly. So do you want to walk us through what we've got here while I fix things in the background?
Yes. So reason for this is twofold. I wanted mounted wizards for my undead Bretonians, because you can't fit a mortis engine on a horse. Doesn't quite work. And in the most recent game of Old World that I played, that I lost heroically, I discovered a rule, Ed, that I hadn't realised in the rulebook.
Oh, yeah?
Which is that if your necromancer is on foot or your character is on foot, doesn't matter how close he is to a unit of Blood Knights, he can still be shot, because he's not the same unit type. So we learned that by losing best part of 500 points of my army to a fireball.
Yeah, that's a
from the Ruby Ring.
Pretty entry level one there, bud. You probably should have known that.
I've needed to come up with a way to defend my necromancer from these heinous fireball attacks, and the best way to do that is stick him on a horse rather than a flying carpet. Sure. So yes, got him on a horse. I had some left over, so I'm going to do 18 Knights of the Realm using the Black Knight kit. So that meant I had 2 left over, so I've made 2 necromancers on horseback. This is my first one on screen now. So it's like the Black Knight horse with Hexwraith legs, Black Knight torso, and a Hexwraith's arms, with basically the shaft of one of the weapons only. Shaft. I said it. There we go. You're very mature, Ed.
Right.
And haven't attached the end of the big scythe thing. So it looks like he's got a magic staff. I need to put like a head on it or something. I'm going to put like a burning skull or something on top of it. I've decided literally just now that I'm going to do that.
I think that sounds like a good idea.
So that's my first necromancer.
Yeah, I like it. So that sounds to me like you want to go to the next one. And you know what the funny story is? This isn't going to auto open up the next one. So we're just going to go like this, old school.
Old school, baby. Let's go.
In fact, let's go to the second necromancer. There we go. It's the one with the skull and the hands in the air, like it just doesn't care.
That's the one. Yes. So there's a Hex Wraith torso, which is literally the guy. Like he has like a scythe that he's holding over his head like that, but actually looks like before you attach the scythe, it looks like he's just at the best rave you've ever been to. He's just like whoop whoop whoop. So I thought I'd attach 2 skulls on chains to that torso. So he's like swinging 2 skulls on chains around, which somehow makes him a necromancer, but it definitely does mean that he looks different to all of the other undead things on horses around him. So he's going to be my rave necromancer or grave necromancer. And he is going to hopefully follow my blood knights around or become my prophetess and not get shot to bits this time around. That's the theory. And then in that game that I lost, to be fair, that necromancer was quite important because it was the one keeping the blood knights alive. And as anyone that has played against vampire counts, it's very annoying when 4 blood knights out of 8 just randomly come back upon the casting of a spell that you have no ability to interact with. So when you lose that, you tend to lose them quite quickly and you've got no way of bringing them back. So would have definitely come in handy to have 8 blood knights running around
Absolutely.
throughout the course of that game. So not saying it would have turned the result around, playing a very good Chaos Warriors player. So I did some learnings about Forsaken and a guy on a not dragon thing that turns out to be a lot more maneuverable than a guy on a big dragon, which means he can still get behind me. And as anyone that plays Vampire Counts knows, once someone gets behind you and starts eating your Mortis engine, it doesn't end well for the rest of the army after that.
Fantastic stuff. And for some reason it's opened. It's okay. It's okay. Tell us about this. You've got an Abyssal Terror, I believe.
Indeed, it is going to be my Abyssal Terror / Lord on Royal Pegasus. It's the second kit. So I think we showed a few streams ago, we showed Luca Vi, the Mother of Nightmares, which was an unfortunate Christmas purchase from the mother-in-law. I have purchased my own one, which is the Vengorian Lord, which is like the male version of Luca Vi. So they have, the 2 models have like, the torsos are the same, but they have like obviously different heads and different arm poses going on. So they do look legally distinct from each other. So should be able to tell which is the Baron and which is the Duke for the army. And hopefully that means I have both the big monsters ready. So I need to literally build 4 or 5 more Knights of the Realm before Thursday, or at least have horses on bases by Thursday. And then I can run the Bretonians, which will be very exciting because I'm playing a Vampire Counts player, and undead on undead can be a bit grindy after a while. Or I don't know what list he's running yet, but if it's my list doesn't really kill anything, so we just kind of stand there and look menacingly at each other, which just ends in everyone or no one scoring any points, or someone just completely wiping the floor with the other person. So I'm looking forward to playing it with the Bretonians instead and learning something completely different.
Fantastic. Yeah, different playstyle is always fun. I'm a little bit lost for what I want to play next, because it's probably going to be High Elves, but I just really want to play something different for your event. But then,
yeah, you're feeling a bit burned out with Dark Elves, do you think?
Yeah, a little bit. It's just the same sort of thing every time. I've kind of hit the limits of what I want to do with them, but yeah. No, that's all good. Well, it looks like despite some slight tech issues, we're back. We're up and running. People are here, which is all good stuff. If you haven't already, give a thumbs up to the stream if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch and you haven't already, do drop a follow as well. That would be appreciated. And we can get on with talking about, I guess, let's go straight to the event. So, I snapped some pictures. I wasn't really planning on making a video on the event, but I thought I'll just take some pictures of each game as I go, and I can, briefly run through them if needs be. This is what we call a problem. This is a problem that occurred on the night before the event, so the Friday night.
What is that?
Yeah, this was not. I was not happy about this. I dropped a instant porridge pot that I got from my old work. into my box where all my models were. And as you can see, there's some snapped off bits in there, but it wasn't too much
Oh
damage.
no.
But mostly everything was covered by a very, very thin film of golden
Porridge dust.
syrup flavored or smelling oat dust. So I was sat there at whatever time it was, let's say, midnight, with a big dry brush brushing.
I was going to say, you don't want to add water to that.
No,
Try and
absolutely
wash that
not.
off.
Yeah, that would have been fairly horrendous. But yeah, that was what happened, and that was only one of two issues that I had, because the second issue was the next day. I dropped my case, and I dropped my case outside.
Oh
and
no.
The Dark Elf Sorceress has lost her head, her weapon in her right hand. The dragon has lost one of its feet and its tail tip. So
were they contained within the box, or are they lost under the
no,
street?
they are
Nottingham?
gone forever. So
In
that's
Nottingham somewhere.
well, where I live, but outside, and where I live, there's a lot of greenery, and it just like they flew. I have no idea where they've gone, but
There's going to be a gardener in like 20 years' time. He's just going to do a little bit of digging, and he's going to unearth this head in the ground.
I think
and he's going to be like, "What the hell is going on here?" Luckily, it'll be a very small head.
Yes. What's more likely is they won't notice at all. Yeah, Jin Steve says, "What are we missing?" I'm missing bits of a model, but it's okay because I've got replacement bits for the sorceress, and the dragon can just have battle wounds, so it's not a problem. But
yeah, there'll be many tears cried by one less dragon being present in the old world now, Ed. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Sympathy will be limited on stream, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So some dragon bits, the tail tip and a foot from the Stormcast dragons that are converted. But honestly, it's not too noticeable. It's just the sorceress I need to replace. And I've got bits that I can replace for her. So my first two games, I'm going to breeze through together because they were both against dwarves. So game one, I was playing against Paul. Paul was playing Royal Clan. He's got a really nice ethereal style dwarf list. And you know what? Before I do this, I should very quickly talk about the list. It's the same. It's if you've seen any of the Dark Elf, list that I've been playing, it's basically the same. It's a Dreadlord on Dragon with a 4-up board against Strength 5 or greater. It's basically the the Lady's Gift on crack. It's a 5-up ward at all times, or a 4-up ward if you're Strength 5 or greater. Then 2-up save against non-magical shooting from the shield and that. And I've got a great weapon as well. So pretty cheap, hits reasonably hard, quite survivable. And then the sorceress is on a dragon as well with a Tome of Furion, which is a spell familiar. Basically gives me +1 spell known. 2 focus familiars, so I can cast my spells once per game per focus familiar, a little bit further, 12 inches further, and a Talisman of Protection as well. So both are pretty tanky. I can drop a Pillar of Fire 24 inches, which wasn't really pivotal in these games, but it's nice to have. And then I've got 3 units of Dark Riders in core and various upgrades, and then 2 units of Cold Ones. 1 is melee with the Banner of Harganeth, and 1 is not melee. 1 is ranged with the Ruby Ring of Ruin. And interestingly, there were 2 people with the exact same list at this event, and they were both Dark Elf players.
They've been net listing.
Well, there'd been Discord listing. So Willem, who is lovely and I've talked to before, and also has been playing Dark Elves, decided he was also going to play the same list, and had a really good time with it as well, which was nice. So we'll get to some pictures, and what I'll do is I'll lie and I'll pretend that this is my army, because he's a way better painter than I am. So
Is there
really models.
Is there a viable infantry style shooting style list? No.
Stop asking. No.
Good.
The only good unit for Dark Elves that isn't in the list that I have here are Shades. Yeah. And Shades are fine. So playing into Paul, there's as you can see here, this is at the end of my turn 1. After Paul went first, I went second. The Dreadlord has been Arcane Urgency'd behind the lines, so he can charge either the Anvil, or he can charge into the back of this unit of Longbeards. On the left, there's a big unit of Iron Drakes, and then there's the Bugman's Cart behind there. And then there's a Grudge Thrower that was incredibly ineffective until later on. But we'll get to that. Yes, look at all that violence. If you're a dwarf player, are you going to be happy? with that. Anyone who's got a slightly bigger picture than Lewis can see, in the bottom left there is a Santa Claus, Santa dwarf who has stood on the top of some presents. Which I believe this army was made for one of the Christmas RTTs that Rob was running, and I did ask whether Paul regretted having the dwarf on presents, and the answer
Never.
was yes, because now we're past Christmas. It's a long time until this is suitable.
Just have to keep it in the cabinet for the whole year.
Yeah, it was a case of just basically not giving Paul any good choices and just getting multi charges. Here I was set up so I could either go for the anvil or for the unit. I decided to kill the anvil first so we couldn't buff up the unit and make them really hard to kill.
Seems sensible.
Went in. He had the rune of smiting on a Thane, not on a king, I believe it was. So less attacks came in. I still took, one wound went through. Rune of smiting is the d6 damage on the axe. So Paul rolled a 6. So my Dreadlord immediately dropped to 3 wounds. And I was like, this is not too happy about that. I don't think there's any more pictures of this game, or maybe there's one more. If I go across here, yeah, you can see on the other hand side. But it basically came down to my Dreadlord ended the game on 1 wound, and thanks to the Grudge Thrower, I ended without my Sorceress. She took an absolute pounding. Turns out that dwarf shooting is no joke. Both dwarf players were playing this big brick of Iron Drakes with various other bits and pieces.
Yep.
The Dwarven Thane, who does really good chip damage. So this was an 18-2. It was a very strong win, but in terms of the actual game itself, it was very close. Up until the last couple of turns, where there was real threat that it could spike, and it would have been a closer win, but it could have gone a little bit less well for me. Obviously not going too into depth with these because we are talking about the high elves, but I did want to just sort of go through. And here you can see where I've marked out with dice, those cold ones are outside of range of the dwarf charge. And I think I did this for 3 turns. I just kept walking them back. So I was like, you know what? Actually, I'm going to let the rest of my army do something. Yeah, dwarves are one of the armies that can take a cold one charge on the chin. So sometimes you just got to accept that it's, we'll
sometimes you just need a dragon. That's all you need.
Sometimes when you've got 2 dragons, just let the 2 dragons do what they need to do. And that was on open battle. On to game 2. This is my deployment in my second game against dwarves, back to back. This is Mountain Pass, which is the worst place to play dwarves. I always seem to get them on Mountain Pass, but as you can see, I've got both dragons behind a building, I've got both units of cold ones in the centre, and then I've got some dark riders behind a wood, and I was playing against Tom, and this is Tom's entire army. There's a Gyrocopter just behind the wood there, but you can see there's a big unit of Iron Drakes and a really big unit of Rangers, so Tom's gone even harder on the shooting. For some reason, we have lost Lewis, but that's okay. I'll see if I can add him back in. There we go. Lewis, you're back. I don't know what you did, but don't do it again.
I touched nothing. I did nothing. I saw myself disappear from the stream, but I was still on the background thing. So
disgraceful behaviour. I don't want any of your excuses. Perfect. I'm definitely going to iron out the kinks with this at some point.
This is a car crash, Edward. Keep going.
No, it's fine. It's all going well. But yeah, no, this is a difficult army for me to deal with because if I stand out in the open, I will get shot to shit. That is the technical terminology. I did scout some Dark Riders up the side here because I figured, you know what? I'm going to not get the +1 to go first anyway. He's got 3 units plus characters. I had way more than that, so stuck him down the side, and I don't know if I took any pictures of it. Let me just see if I did. That's one of the ones I should have deleted. Right, here we go. I apologize for making you feel sick. I'll get rid of this photo in a second, but as you can see here, I took some photos quite quickly, and I need to adjust my shutter speed apparently. So this is the long unit of Rangers. Behind them you can just make out a unit of Dark Riders. Basically, my dragon is the blur in the top left of the picture.
What is going on?
I've asked an urgency behind his line. So if I go back here, basically top left, my dragon is behind the 2 units in the top left, and I've got some Dark Riders behind them to stop them from pivoting round to shoot the dragon. So I was using Dark Riders as a... It's just the dwarves running really fast. Yeah, they're natural-born sprinters, as we all know. Dwarves.
Dangerous over short distances.
Dangerous over short distances. Yes, excellent stuff. So, I was using the Dark Riders to pin them in. I'm pretty sure I didn't take a picture of it. Oh, there we go. That's a better picture you can see. I did do things, I swear. Look, so the Dark Rider's behind, and then you've got the dragon over here, and on the left-hand flank, I've got the Sorceress without a head. Have you thought about just keeping the Vaseline away from the camera lens? Ginger Steve, do not appreciate your sass. How dare you, sir?
When a man uses as much Vaseline as Ed does, it's difficult to
I
keep
really
it
don't
off
like
everything.
Vaseline. I find it really uncomfortable. I don't typically get chapped lips as well. So
Other lubricants are available.
Right, we're just going to move on. As you can see here, if you look closely, in fact, let me see if I can zoom in. Can I zoom in? No, apparently there's no ability to zoom in, despite there being a
Bottom
zoom
right.
function. Yeah, I'm
Bottom
moving
right.
it.
It's not happening.
No, you can see where the bar is. It's just not interested.
What's going on? Okay.
Oh, god damn it. Anyway, yeah, the dragon's moving foot. But yes, I did some big brain plays, and I sandwiched in the dwarves with Dark Riders. Later in the game, I did it with 2 units of Dark Riders, so they really just couldn't go anywhere, which was hilarious to me. They were just stuck in place. They could have charged, and I think they did charge, and then I just ran away because I was like, well, you know, I don't need to let you do anything. I just want to stop you from having any impact to the game.
Yes.
And there we go. Yes, this was the sort of one big mistake that I think Tom made, which let me overrun into his Iron Drakes, which didn't change the course of the game, but just made it a little bit easier for me. He decided to charge me with this Doomseeker because he was really worried that I was just going to get a victory by not killing the Doomseeker and not interacting too heavily, because obviously the Doomseeker gives up points if it doesn't die.
Yeah.
This let me just run straight forwards. You can see down in the very bottom of the corner, there's
see that
some
unit,
Iron Drakes
yeah.
there, yeah. And I went in and I just clipped the edge of them. I was like, cool, that is for me. I will take it, and thank you very much. So I just got to charge with both dragons next turn. But it also meant that the king, who's in the other unit, what Tom had done very well was positioned his unit so that the very tanky BSB and the king of doing loads of damage were able to move between units. But because I was in the combat already, and I'd blocked his move, he wasn't able to join combat with the king. So it all worked out nicely for me.
So do you think he could have?
Oh, there we go. That's the double pin.
Do you think he could have shifted the king across before the dragon overran? Would that?
So yeah, he could have done. He'd have had to have done it the turn that he charged me with the Doomseeker. If he'd done that, I'd have just like tested to restrain on a leadership 10 and charged the flank of the Quarrelers and just absolutely mulched them, because they would have had nothing that they'd have been able to do. I also, what I did was I made some charges to make sure that Tom wasn't able to move his characters. So later on in this unit here, I made sure to charge the front of the unit so that the king was in the fighting rank and wasn't able to move sideways to that corner where the dragon was, just to make sure that he wasn't able to soak it up or do any damage. And this was, once I got the positioning, that's how Tom's dwarves felt. It had all gone wrong in a very cinematic and blurry kind of way. And there was a second 18-2 victory, and I was feeling pretty good about things. There was the Gyrocopter trying to stop me, and then I just killed it and overran into it. But it was a good last-minute play. Perfect. Here we have a game against Wood Elves. So, again, apologies for the blurry picture. I've deployed... I know. Right, you can see the trees up in the top left. I hope I
see
got
a tree.
Yeah, did I get a better picture of them? Oh no, there we go. So this was a really nicely hobbied army. That was something I wanted to highlight. It was
you can really tell.
Yeah, it was really nicely converted. It was double dragon Wood Elves. And
okay, that's a good photo. That's a good photo. Stick with the dragons. I love the dragons.
Yeah, the dragons are good. You can't see them, but there were some old treemen that my opponent had to adjust the hands on because he'd lost the hands. So he'd had to sculpt some new ones out of wire, and he said he'd looked at it and gone, these are a bit crap. And they were like 1980s treemen. So he'd covered the entire thing with flock, and it looked really good. Matt had done an incredible job at making the army look lovely. Yeah. So this is a dark elf dragon, but with loads of bits added on the left.
To make it wood elfy.
Yeah, without the armor plates, and on the right it's an owl of some kind.
I like the well. The well is cool.
It is. It's very nice. Yeah, it was a great event for hobby. There we go. You can see the trees. Excellent stuff. So this is again my favorite maneuver, which is you want to exist? Well, I'll put my dragon behind you. It's a fantastic move. It's really hard to get away from because you can't just walk backwards out of range.
No.
And I set up the angles so it's very difficult to get out. And what ended up happening was I ate one tree man pretty immediately. And you can see here my pillar of fire doing some work. because Matt was evasiving out of my range or out of my line of sight with my spells, and so I was like, well, Pillar of Fire this. Good luck getting out that one. But yeah, ate a tree mana in immediately, and then spent the rest of the game trying to catch the second one. But I did a pretty good job of avoiding me. After I made it clear that I was, hungry for kindling. It was a yeah. So the one on the left died immediately. The one on the right took a lot longer. It actually went for a charge, but because it was in the wood, it failed the charge onto the other dragon, which he was trying to lock in place. Okay, that's on to game 4. So yeah, that was I think a 14-6 victory. That was, I think, one of the best games I played in terms of what I did with it. I managed to stay out of charge of the dragons. I don't think either of his dragons ended up in combat at all. I might be wrong with that. I might have fed them some small units, but they didn't end up in combat with anything
significant.
They didn't get into combat with either of my dragons. They may have got some cold ones. In fact, I think they probably did get some cold ones, but no, there wasn't no big points scored from there. Yeah. And that was good. So
I noticed some controversy on the WhatsApp chat about the wood elf trees.
Well,
even there's no trees present.
Yeah, so this is the L-shaped wood, as you can see. I don't mind it. I do think it could do with some trees on. Obviously, I've been building my own on stream for the last 2 weeks. It was quite fun explaining it to Rob, because his immediate response was dismay and shock. And he after a while came back and he said, a lot of people have been saying to me that it's technically legal, which I think is the best way to describe the issue. It's like, yes, it is something I can technically do. Obviously, this is the anti-Bretonia tech, because it's too thin for the Green Knight to spawn out of. I'll be damned if I'm bringing a bit of terrain for the Green Knight to come and rack me in. L-shaped wood, yes it is indeed, Gwillem.
One might suggest that the easier way to deal with the situation would be to change the rules of the model that is causing this weird abomination of a wood.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't have the power to do that.
No, I'm just making a general point.
You know what I do have the power to do? Make an L-shaped wood, baby. So I don't. I could maybe take wood elves to your event. I'd lose most of my games because I don't think they're very good. But I could bring my L-shaped wood. That'd be cool.
You could.
Yeah. Justice for wood elves, ban the Green Knight. Yeah, I did say that to Rob as well. I was like, look, trade offer. I offer you that we will stop using the L-shaped wood. In return, you ban the Green Knight. Classic wood elves, always finding an L somehow. Yes, very convinced. That is very much how it feels to play them at the moment. But yes, that was where we were on day 1. So good games, and I was 3-0. I was the only player who was 3-0 going into day 2.
Cruising to victory, one might say.
No, not at all. It was a case of feeling good about it, but I knew that I'd had my easier matchups, and I don't necessarily mean the players. I just mean looking at the lists. My list does very well into dwarves, even dwarves that can kill dragons. But I'm now well versed in avoiding the gunfire. Like, I know that I can stick out for one turn and then get into combat and get what I need.
Yeah.
It's so there are a couple of games that were going to be difficult coming into day 2, and yes, my game 4 was against Dr. Luke Blacksill, who was in attendance without sunglasses on. And we had a fantastic game. I really enjoyed it. These are his lovely Bretonians. You've got a couple of lancers in the centre here, one with the damsel. Got some peg knights, 3 units of peg knights, all with names translated into French. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. I did translate them, but it was something like that. Something with like the assassins, the murderers, or something like that. I did quite enjoy those. Keith says you'd use Treekin, go well into rushless and good at surviving to deny points otherwise. Yes, so here you can see I've fully stacked my wood. No Green Knight for me. I shan't be having him on my side of the board. With cold ones on the left, a couple of dragons in the centre, and oh god, what a mess. Okay, so none of these pictures are usable. Excellent stuff. So...
Wait, how much did you had to drink at this event, Ed?
I don't drink. Like, there's no alcohol consumed. And I had a lot of teas. I tell you what, I'm now such a regular at Rob's events that he doesn't even ask if I want a tea. He'll just bring me a tea to my liking, which is fantastic. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I've got a few regulars like that. I don't even have to go up to their table anymore. Just like, yep, I know what you need.
So this was a really good game. Unfortunately, I don't seem to have very many pictures of it. We'll go back to looking at his models because they're nicer than mine. And we had a great game. It was very tight. It was very by intent. It was really fun. And yeah, it was just a good time overall. Coming into turn 5, I had top of turn, of course, because Luke was playing Grand Army. So he had prayed, got the blessing, all of that good stuff. I put a lot of pressure on early with my caster. In turn 1, I did, I think, 3 wounds to every Pegasus Knight unit, so they were down to 1.5 wounds per, which is obviously a bit of a scary place to be as the Bretonnian player.
Yeah.
I didn't quite manage to finish off as much as I wanted to, but coming into sort of Luke's turn 5, I had, I think, a tight points lead. I was looking like I was probably in the running for like an 11 or 12 point win, which is not too shabby at all. At that point, obviously, the Heroism Duke comes in, and Luke had used him to mostly clear things off around the edges. I'd had to sacrifice a lot of my Dark Riders who normally survive. I had to throw them into the fire to try... What I wanted to do was give him stuff to do in the flanks so I could pick up more points, because my small units are more... like, it's easier for me to run around, and I was hoping it would take longer for them to die than it was going to take for me to kill the Peg Knights.
Right, yeah.
It managed to avoid my charge out quite well, and I did pick up bits and pieces, but it was a case of, very close, very tight the whole way through. Duke goes into the Sorceress, goes for the killing blow. First round of combat, doesn't get it, which is, great news for me. Second round of combat, does get the killing blow. I failed the ward save. And it's a shame that it came down to a little bit of a lottery mechanic. And we talked about this before the game. I said, obviously, you're a good player. I'm really looking forward to playing you. But it's a bit of a shame that it could come down to the dice roll. I don't feel hard done by. The fact that I survived the first round of combat and then died in the second round, that's 10 attacks that are coming in, hitting me on 3s. The odds
One of them's going to be a 6 at that point, yeah.
Yeah, I think the odds are something like 65 to 70% chance that over 2 rounds of combat, the Sorceress dies to the Duke with killing blow. That's super reasonable. The fact that I got to the second round was like, yeah, you know what, fair enough. I would have had to have high rolled to survive there. But unfortunately, I didn't have a good way of getting away, because it was also command and control. I had to stay in the centre. And that ended up shaping up to be a small loss. It was, I think it was 8-12 in Luke's favour. So, good game, but I lost, so I was in 3-1. It did mean that I was still in contention, though, because we had 2 players who were 3 in a draw. We had myself, who was 3-1, and then I think there might have been one other player who was 3-1. I think it was 2. No, there must have been another player who was 3-1. So it wasn't too bad there. And then coming into the final game, which I'm going to have to skip forwards to because I took pictures of all of the models in the centre. If I open that one up. Oh. Here we go. You look at this mess. This is a double dragon Dark Elves versus triple dragon Warriors of Chaos game. And there's not a huge amount to talk about here. It was... it was just dragons doing dragon things and maneuvering. I had Arcane Urgency. I think I played this really well. I got into good positions. I felt like I had positioned well enough that I gave myself a chance to win the game. But it was a case of, you can't afford to stand still in this matchup. I had a combat where if I'd rolled average dice, I'd have killed the Warpfire Dragon, overran into the Sorcerer Lord, and then I've had a couple of turns, 2 or 3 turns of combat to try and kill it before the Chaos Lord could even get close.
Yeah.
So that would have been great if that had
That'd
gone
be a
the
big
way.
point swing, yeah.
Yeah, but instead I only did a single wound to the Warpfire Dragon, who had already been injured. And, it is a dice game. That is what it is, so I'm not going to complain about that. But I was happy with my play. Unfortunately, did lose. It was an 11-9. I thought I'd scraped a draw. Because Rob's events normally uses like 150 point differential, but BCP does it automatically now, and their differential is 100 points. So I was a very narrow loss.
He can change. That might be a point of discussion. You can change the differential on BCP to whatever number you want it to be.
It might be what he set it up as. I think,
it's a very good point, though. I need to check mine for the. I'm going to write a note now. Because there's a good chance my BCP for Saffron a couple of weeks' time has automated itself, which won't be good.
Evening, Landon. Good to have you. But yeah, so that was the event. I had 5 games that I enjoyed. I played opponents I enjoyed playing against. I think I played well. I don't think there were any. Honestly, the first game was my sloppiest.
Yeah.
I think realistically there shouldn't have been. Like, I had 1 dragon left with 1 wound. I think I probably could have played that tighter and not been in as tight a situation there. But yeah, no, I think it was good. Unfortunately, the other 3-1 player going into the last round did win, so they took the 4th place spot, which I'd missed up until I looked at the rankings. I was like, oh, bugger, I've been bumped. But yeah, no, good event overall.
No, well played, mate. Nicely done. Sounds like, well, 3 strong wins and 2 close losses. They could have gone either way. So
yeah. It is a little disappointing when that isn't represented in the table, the final rankings, because you feel like you've done really well and then just missing out on a podium.
Yeah, you can't it doesn't cap how far you can fall.
Yeah,
how far you can fall.
You're not guaranteed one, or you don't deserve one just for turning up. But I did the 2 games that I lost were the against the number 1 and number 2 player. So I'm happy with how the event went. Janib says, what are the 3 dragons? It was a Chaos Lord, which is the one on the top left there. That one didn't make it into combat until turn 6. So I'm very happy with how I did avoiding that one. That was just flail and shield and a single favor of the gods. The one in the center, where the measuring tape is currently, that's a sorcerer on dragon. And then the one on the right is the Warpfire Dragon as well. Golrak isn't involved because Golrak is a little bit bad, unfortunately. But yeah, it was good. Demonology Sorcerer, and it really tears chunks out of other dragons if you've got the Warpfire Dragon next to it to turn off ward saves, which is what happened when I didn't kill the Warpfire Dragon. Have we got any other shots here? Yeah, I just want to show this. I feel like this was a great bit of manoeuvring. I'd baited the sorcerer out. It had charged. I fled, overran, and then I managed to get some nice charge angles. And the sorcerer actually, over the course of multiple turns, managed to get into the Warriors of Chaos, kill the command, do wounds to them on the next turn, push them back, charge the Shartak that's in the behind the building on the top right hand corner over there when the Chaos Dragon came to try and catch me, and then as soon as the Chaos Dragon turned around to get me, I was back into the Warriors. So I was ducking and diving. I was everywhere,
just kiting it around the board.
Oh, it was great. I felt big brain. But yeah, so that is everything there in terms of the games, and I will just flick through some of the pictures, and I'm sorry for the quality of pictures, but it was a great event for hobbying. This is our own Jack Cropper, I believe, Jack C, with the Warriors of Chaos list. Got a Demon Prince. I didn't play against Jack, but I did hear he had a Hell Cannon, and it's good to see it in the back there.
Yeah.
I don't think
did it kill anything, Jack? That's the question.
Probably itself. I don't think he'll be playing another Hell Cannon. In fact, he was talking about taking it out and putting something else in. We had a really nice nomadic war list. I believe this one best painted, if I am correct. And as you can see here, there's a paint, Exiles painting, so I'm assuming that's a commission painting. Understandable as to the quality of the models there. They look really nice. Alex's Warriors of Chaos, I really like these. You've got some nice aggressive models. This looks like what I'd expect a Warriors of Chaos list to look like. So
yeah, that looks tasty.
In a year or two's time, when infantry are better, maybe we'll see something more like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed having a look at that one. There were 3 Bretonnian lists, but only one of them had the Falconhorn, I believe. I think this is the one with the Falconhorn. So really nice Pegasus there.
Oh, interesting.
This is just a really nicely painted army. You got some cannons as well. You can see the.
So did Luke not have the Falconhorn then?
No. I honestly, in Grand Army, I've been writing lists without it as well, because it's hard to fit everything you want, and it's unreliable because you can't put it on your Leadership 9 Baron, so you have to put it on something Leadership 8, and at that point you fail it a chunk. Which is difficult.
Interesting. I don't know. It feels like just for the ability to, even if you only get it off 4 out of 6 turns, it feels like just stops the dragons playing the get behind you game, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you've also got a 360-degree charge killing blow like a Monster Slayer character, so whether you need it is open to interpretation.
I think in my fake Bretonnian list, I've got it in the Grail Knights on the champion, but I know Grail Knights aren't amazing, but I enjoy them.
Also, that's I think not allowed because it specifically says characters have to have it. It's one of those things where do unit champs count as characters, and it's not an argument that we'll get into here because
no, I have ruled at the Saffron Slam you can take it on.
very good.
I've just assumed that if a model can be given magic items, it can be given the magic items.
Yeah, that's excusable. This was Owen's Empire, I believe. Owen, I think, did pretty well. Some really nice red knights there. We had Gwillem's Dark Elves. I did say to him that I was going to pretend this was my list. Look at the quality on those. Did I give a closer shot? Yeah, look at those dragons. I believe that's the Carmine dragon on the right, which is just a lovely model. And then some mixed colour Cold One Knights, along with some really nice Dark Riders as well. So that's what my army would
I like
look
the mixed coloured knights, actually. They're really cool.
Yeah, they look beautiful. I'm a big fan of that. And then you've got a bit of Dark Elf in the background. I think that's the 8th edition book, if memory serves me correctly. Then we've got some blurry dwarves. Sorry, whoever that was, I didn't get a picture of the models. Dan's Bretonians. Dan came third overall. So we've got, some lances of knights there. All good stuff. And then some really blurry wood elves. Tom's dwarves again. Tom did end up winning. I want to say this might have been the best painted single model Tom won for his king.
Yeah.
Really nicely painted stuff there. Again, the wood elves that we've seen already from Matt. And then I think we're back into all of the pictures. I don't think I got everyone's pictures there, unfortunately. But we did get a good amount of stuff. And it was a good time all round. So.
Yeah, sounds like it was a great event.
Yeah, and local. Actually, a free ticket. Which was really nice of Rob, because the event that I was meant to go to earlier in the month ended up being cancelled because of lack of attendance, so he hooked me up, which was super cool of him. We do like Rob in this household. So, event's over. I guess that's it. There's not anything else exciting to talk about, is there? Anything you've got?
No, let's call it there. Bye.
All right, well, we're going to talk about some High Elves, and I believe, if I'm correct, have you looked at the leaks at all, or is this completely new to you?
So I haven't looked at leaks at all, but I have seen the big sexy lizardy thing, which I'm very excited for.
I'll just save you. Yeah, the Merworm's definitely a controversial choice. It says, get out the crackling fire and mood lighting. Not for this stream, I've told you. Behave yourself.
People want the fire red. Come on. No one actually wants to listen to us.
He's too horny for elves. That's what he is. So what we'll do is, I'll tell you what. We'll start off with what everyone already knows, and we'll just go to the... Here we go.
Bring her up.
The Almanac. Here's the Merworm. So this is interesting, because if you look at stats from previous editions, it was never T6, which worries me. When you've got a non-T6 monster, I do get a little bit concerned, but it is, as you say, I quite like the model. I'm interested to hear how much it's going to be. I assumed it would be made to order, given the war wagon was made to order, but apparently not. It's going to come as part of a normal release.
But loads of them.
Yeah, it's going to be I assume a resin piece. Have you got a guess for how much it's going to come in at? The war wagon was £80.
Because it's an old Forge-Well kit, isn't it? So that always adds £600,000 onto the cost. So I don't think we get much change out of £100 out of it. Do you think?
I think that's a fair statement. I don't know the cost, but it's going to be expensive. And because I'm planning on taking High Elves to the Warhammer World event in April, assuming that I can write a list that I want to play.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping that Merworms aren't something that I want to put in the list. Because if I run 2, that's a big chunk of change. And you can't get discounts on them. Speaking of discounts, if you're in the UK and you want discounts on your Warhammer, do go to Element Games referral link down below. Look how smooth that was.
That was, wow, bloody hell. Took me aback there.
Yeah. The other option that we do have is obviously converting some sort of other Warhammer beastie. I haven't looked yet, but maybe that's something that I will do tonight as soon as the stream ends, and I'll look through all of the other Warhammer snaky models. Maybe there's something...
Big slug.
Maybe there's something in the Lord of the Rings sets that would work. You had financial stability. Oh, I see. Referring to other Ed. Perfect. Yeah, so we've got some interesting rules in here. So it's got 4 attacks at Strength 6 and Weapon Skill 6. That's always good. We can assume that it's got AP 2, because most things do have that as a fairly standard for monsters. it'll have some, it looks to be a behemoth. It'll have some sort of stomps. I don't know the numbers on them.
Belly flops.
Yes, so
What
I think
noise does it make?
Let's not get
It's
demonetized.
going to be like a bubbly, growly. It's mostly underwater, isn't it? So it doesn't want to growl.
Yeah.
Um,
If it's T6, I'm burning my Charybdis. I'm sorry, Gwillem. It's probably not T6, but you should probably burn your Charybdis anyway. So it does have some rules to make it more survivable. I'm a little concerned about it. If it's T5, and it's got... So Abyssal Cloak gives you -2 to be hit at long range instead of the -1. Ballistic skill shooting doesn't really threaten monsters much, usually. Or if
it doesn't really change against cannons, does it?
If it does, the armies that have it, such as, let's say, dwarves, might bring someone who makes them ignore long-range penalties.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bummed about that.
I mean, that stops... It reduces incidental damage, doesn't it? It's not going to stop the things that are deliberately trying to target it.
Yeah. But it also doesn't do anything when I full send towards you, which is how this model, I assume, is going to want to play, because it is, by the looks of things, a melee monster. So, yeah, we'll see. The reason that I'm saying this is I've also heard that it's meant to be like over 200 points. I don't know if that's correct. I actually don't know much about the Merworm. It is a gap in my assumptions, we'll say. But it does have...
Errorgeist is more than 200 points, so...
Sure, but it's also T6. And has Fly and Swift Stride. I've heard conflicting things about whether it has Swift Stride. Enfeebling Cold, while in base contact with this model, enemy models are -1 to their strength characteristic to a minimum of 1. So it gives it some pseudo toughness in combat, which is nice. But yeah, we'll see. What are your thoughts on it from what we've seen so far?
Yeah, so -1 strength. It's not going to do anything against infantry or anything like that fighting it.
No. Well,
the great weapons...
It'll mean that it's probably wounded on 6s instead of 5s, because it's only T5, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So potentially that helps there. And then your other kind of bigger break point would be your great weapons going up to strength 6. So it drops them from 3s to 4s, which is quite nice. Your strength 6 dragons, etc. Again, dropping to strength 5. So
where are they? They're all strength 7, buddy.
Oh, strength. Well, unless they're the zombie dragons.
The good ones, sorry.
So it's doing nothing against your chaos dragons, not doing anything against.
Well, you're winning on 3s instead of 2s, but I mean that's not exciting. It's
so I mean I think it's nice to have. I don't know that it's going to rewrite the whole world.
Matthew says trolls only wound it on 3s. I don't think that's right, because it's if it's T5, trolls are strength 5 +2 for the great weapon. SEBM says it's T6 and 220ish, no Swift Stride, and a 5-up armor. If it only has a 5-up armor and no regen, I am concerned. I am very
Surely it'll have a regen, surely.
Maybe. It has in previous editions. It had a 4-up regen in 6th edition. But yeah, I'm not sure. But that is the stuff that isn't concrete. Let's have a look at the stuff that is concrete. And by that I mean rumours from a French YouTube channel. So what I will say is... we don't need to take much pinch of salt with these. This lines up with the things that I've heard, so I think this is pretty much on par. So if
you heard it here first, team. This is legit.
You heard it here later than first, because other people have been saying the same thing. But so the 2 detachments, obviously we know there's coming Trace and Seaguard. So for the Trace, you've got princes. You still have the princes and archmages and nobles. You've got a Tracian chieftain, similar as a baron to a duke. Corhill might have an option for a chariot, which would be very cool, because foot characters are not super exciting at the moment, and other rumours about Corhill are that he hits real hard, but, takes some damage on the swing back. So if you can put him on a chariot, that will give him that buffer.
A little bit more survivability,
Yeah. Core units, there's a new Tracian Woodsman in addition to Spearman, and 0 to 1 units of White Lions per 1,000 points in core. That's pretty cool. That means that you'd be able to take just good units in core. Like that.
Yeah.
That sounds solid. Or good in the context of infantry. Specials, there are Lions as war beasts but no cavalry, and then rare Lion Guard as super White Lions. Then there has been another rumour that you can upgrade the White Lions to super White Lions or the Lion Guard. I don't really know how that one's going to work, and I don't know what they get from it, honestly.
I always like it when they make these thematic army lists in the arcane journals where it's not sort of fake theme in that you can take white lines
Yeah.
in core, therefore you can build your army completely out of white lines if that's what you want to do. So it's
Sure.
not like they've put a veneer of a theme over an existing army list. They've actually gone, if you want to go white lines, here's the rules to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of just sort of half-assing it. So I always like that. It's really good to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. SEBM says my channel. Excellent stuff. We've got the expert. Fantastic. So yeah, I think that's interesting. Other rumors that have come from this, which we'll get to properly in a second, because there is a second set of rumors posted. But Trace is going to be a sort of you'll have the ability to put a wood down, similar to Wood Elves, which is really cool because I have been building a wood, and I'm probably not buying wood or playing Wood Elves.
Is it shaped like an L by any chance?
I assume it'll have the same wording on how it's written. Who can say? Lion Guard are a giant blind spot of this book. We know the name and nothing else of them. Yeah, absolutely. And what if you only want to take the dragons? Edward, you will not be able to do that, as far as I understand, with either detachment, because I think, and I might be wrong, you'll have to take the Tracian upgrade, which means that you can only be on foot or on lion chariot. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but I don't think you can take dragons in this detachment, so,
Shame.
We'll see, yeah. But I think most of the units you're going to be able to take in Grand Army, so, yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. Elf of the Lionwood. Nice. I think it was Tracian Woodsman, which I think are basically going to be kind of like Dwarven Rangers, but for elves. So you've got a decent save because you've got the lion's pelt, which gives you plus save against shooting. You've got a warbow, your strength 4, and you've got, I think, the great axe or the whatever the weapon is as well, from what I understand. So it's going to be like a skirmishing unit of kind of crap shooting, but with decent melee and quite good defenses. So as core goes, that might be not terrible.
Yeah,
it kind of fits with the playing around the wood thing.
Yeah, especially if you wanted to go down a more chariot heavy route or a more sort of war beastie line sort of route. You could reduce the amount of infantry you took.
Yeah, I could see either of those being a solid way to play it. But that is good there. Into the Sea Guard as well. We've got...
This is what I'm excited for.
Yeah, me too. Let me immediately ruin your day. So you, I believe, can't take princes. So there's no top level dragon. You also can't take archmages. There are stormweavers, so they are level 3 casters, limited to certain magic schools. And I believe they have some sort of other rule on there that makes them interesting as opposed to just being a level 3 caster. I'm not 100% sure what that is. Seaguard had such promise and they fucked it. Maybe.
Is there not a high elf item that allows you +1 to cast? Is that a thing?
There's +1 spell known. But you can just take Lore Familiar, honestly, because their signature spells are pretty bad. I'd be interested to see if they have a Seaguard specific lore or like signature lore, a couple of spells that they get.
Oh, I can make a wet one. That would be cool. Lots of water-based spells.
We're going to move on. I hated everything you said there.
The law of moisture.
The named character has 3 wounds and gives AP to the Seaguard. Yes, this
Ooh,
is...
okay. In shooting as well?
Shooting and melee. She's not locked to the Seaguard detachment, so you could take her and take Seaguard as a interesting core choice. Well, you know what? Let's go through all of these because I have some thoughts on how I might want to build High Elves, so we can get to that later on. So into the core, you've got the Seaguard, you've got Ship's Company, which are spearmen or archers with some interesting rules. So interested to see those, and also Shadow Warriors core per 1,000 points. Apparently, this is something that fits, from previous editions. This sort of lines up with what we've had as well. +1 to cast and a free recast per turn would be bonkers. Probably why we don't have it. Yeah. So High Elves do have a free reroll 1 failed spell per turn. Or I think it's just spell. It's not miscast.
Right, okay.
What I don't know is that rule going to be on the Stormweavers, because it's a specific rule in the book. So we'll see about that. It's not just all casters have it; it's that the casters in the book have it. So we'll see if that transfers across.
Nemo says as well, there's an item for -1 to cast and -1 to dispel, which -1 to dispel would effectively be +1 to cast. in my
Sure.
brain. Does that maths? I think that maths.
Yeah, yeah. Edward says no level 4 and Princess is a heavy TR. I'm assuming that's like a downside or whatever. But if you can take princes, I'm assuming you're able to take them on Sun Dragon or Griffin still. So
Yeah.
maybe there's some play around with that. I think that would be interesting. I'm interested to see Seaguard. Special rule to redeploy after enemy deployment, but before scouts. This is something that I think is very interesting, and it might lean you towards taking a Death Star of Seaguard. Backed up by the named character, giving them all AP1 and they're shooting with their warbows. So I think that's interesting. I'm sure we don't get it, but if you can get demonology in the Stormweaver, there's no reason you should be able to get demonology. But if you could, giving them +1 strength and AP would be absolutely delicious. Anyway, it's not going to happen. But, that would be solid. Lion Guard is an elite White Lion unit. Oh, that I was reading the next thing. Yes, I think that is the only thing that we know about them.
Nemo's Crush My Dreams. The -1 to cast also applies to your own model.
That's very funny.
Whoa, 75 points to nerf your own caster.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm very excited to play around with them. I think
it'll be fine.
There's a lot of flavour in both of those. Where else did we get to? Yeah, special Skycutters, Great Eagles, and Ballista, and also a certain amount of Skycutters and/or Shadow Warriors can have an ambush, which is why they're not core, and a unit of Seaguard per 1,000 can have drilled for free, which is cool because they're a unit that want to be playing around with their ranks because they have an ability to redress the ranks after shooting, and they can always stand and shoot, and they can do some shenanigans there. So being able to go wider or smaller as needed is interesting. But yeah, so any thoughts on that before we move over to the second set, which is more of the same, but sort of like hammers down on it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, obviously, I'm always pro infantry, so I am probably looking at this with slightly rose-tinted glasses, but I think there's something potentially in there if we end up in a world where dragons aren't quite as good and infantry come into play, because I think if we're in a world where infantry are good, those Seaguard being able to shoot and fight is just, I think that's just going to make them, you just get so much value out of one unit. So I think there's something in there. And chuck a couple of Slugger Boys in there as well, and happy days.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get your Behemoth, depending on if they are toughness 6 and they are as resilient or close to being resilient as we hope they might be, and I hope they might be. Do you get your Behemoth fix from Merworms and just accept you can't take the highest level dragon?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. And then if we're in a world where we can only get up to level 3 on our caster, are we just playing a little bit more defensively with the spells that we're choosing, playing a little bit further back on the board to give an extra turn maybe of casting more reliably?
Hard to say.
We shall see.
Yeah, we won't have to wait long. We will
a couple of weeks to go.
Yeah, well, we should have all of the rules coming out next weekend, because NDAs drop the week they got the pre-order, I believe. So we should see things on Saturday. But yeah, looking forward to that.
I need to decide whether I start some High Elves or keep my powder dry for Cathay, which is going to contingent on how quickly I think I can finish my undead.
Yep.
I'm not very good at building up piles of potential, I'm afraid. I'm a good boy when it comes to finishing models before I buy new ones, which I know is a rare trait for a wargamer.
All right. You talk about High Elves, you're here to brag. What's going on? If you as well think that Lewis should stop bragging, make sure to thumbs up the video if you haven't already. We've now hit 100 people.
Let me just remove my thumbs up.
For bearing with us when we had some tech issues earlier. It wasn't Lewis's fault, but I am going to blame him for it. Feed him to the dogs, you know what we say. Perfect. So let's move on to the second set of leaks. And this was from the Motley Crude podcast. Apparently there were some more rules in here. So
more rules.
This does confirm what I had heard, which is that the High Elves will be available for pre-order on Saturday 15th, which is very soon. So that means that the Saturday before it, which let me just double check, that is the 8th, quick maths. Saturday the 8th we will see them, Sunday the 9th we'll see them go up for preview, and then Saturday the 15th, we will see them go up as well, which is fun. So the Sea Guard garrison will be a movement / redeploy / ambushing type army, which is fun.
Indeed.
That's a really interesting direction to take them in. I was wondering if we were going to see something to do with like a lot of shooting from them. So I'm quite glad that they didn't go that direction because, strength 3 shooting in en masse is a little underwhelming. But so the Sea Guard garrison gets to redeploy 1 unit after its enemy, but before the Vanguard moves. So that makes sense. It's sort of like a proto-Vanguard move, but it's very strong, be able to redeploy. Skycutters get access to ambushing. I kind of don't care. I don't know that there's like maybe if you still get that for characters, maybe you want to put a cheap character on one.
On a Skycutter, yeah.
They're Swift Stride heavy chariots with impact hits. Maybe there's something
it's just
there.
Rolling for the ambushers. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not going to write them off immediately, but this doesn't excite me initially. So we'll see. Sea Guard can be a regimental unit with ship's company as its detachment. This is interesting because Sea Guard can always stand and shoot anyway. So I'm thinking potentially we put Sea Guard in front of a hill and we put a unit of ship's company on the top of the hill. You get a double stand and shoot. That could maybe be decent. But if you're taking the character that gives you AP, is it just better to take a bigger
more
unit
Sea
Guard and go wider? Obviously, you can't volley fire, but if you just put them on the hill, they get some benefit there. Confirming here, 0-1 unit Sea Guard per 1,000 points can take drilled. Obviously, good stuff there. 0-1 unit of Shadow Warriors is available in core with free access to ambushing. Shadow Warriors, do you remember?
Do you rate them?
No. But here's the thing. Do I rate them in core? Maybe. I'm pulling them up now on my phone because I cannot remember what they do. They have so many special rules and they are so underwhelming. The main thing that I'm looking for is the price, because if they are a reasonable price, if you can take them not too expensively, is there scope to take them? Then maybe. Let's have a quick look here. Shadow Warriors. 14 points a model. That feels a little expensive. They've got longbows, light armor. They've got a lot of rules. Evasive, fire and flee, scout, skirmish, veterans, warriors of Nagarath, which just means that they can't be joined unless they've got the Shadow Stalker, Elven Honor. As a core unit, that's not too bad. As long as you don't have to pay for ambush as well, like you have a choice on taking it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you think of evasive and fire and flee?
I mean, those are
they skirmishes, I assume. Did you say skirmishes?
They are skirmishes. They have scout. I can't remember if they have Vanguard. I think they have scout and veteran. That was it. So they've got loads of good rules, but the problem is they just can't kill anything. It's strength 3 shooting with no AP, which is not particularly good. I don't think the named character gives AP to any unit it joins. I think it's just to the Sea Guard, but if it does, maybe you go for a bigger unit of the skirmishing Shadow Warriors. Maybe that's something to play around with, but I don't know. I'm interested to see what the Sea Guard garrison commander does. What are you thinking?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I would just some kind of leadership buff maybe, but that seems a bit boring. Could he play off the detachment rule with the ship's company? Something around them?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. It could go a couple of ways there. As we've got here, no level 4 casters or princes.
Okay, that is confirmed, yep.
Yeah, a level 3 caster, Stormweaver. Both of those line up with what I'd heard previously as well, so I think that's fairly accurate. We've got Merworms in rare, and here it says can be taken in Grand Army if there's a unit of Sea Guard. T5, 6 wounds, no Swift Stride, 5 up armor save. No mention of regen. If that's what this is,
it's gonna die too quick, isn't it? 225 points.
Yeah, I'm not feeling that. The Sea Guard commander...
Because you've got to think as well that when I look at my Terrorgeist, for example, it only has a 5 up regen. That's all it's got, and that is not obviously not modified. And a 6 up armor save. Okay, so very rarely do you get an armor save.
Yeah. I don't know, but I've been very sad when people have passed 6 up saves on the Terrorgeist.
So it does just die so quickly against anything that can try and focus it down, and that's with the regen not being modified by AP.
Yeah.
So this is just going to melt to cannons.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes. I'm not going to write them off, but we'll have to see the full set of rules there. Here we go. We were asking what the Sea Guard Commander does. I should have just read further.
There
Can
we
be
go.
deployed as a BSB with 75 points of magic items, so one of those sort of semi-heroes, which is interesting because I think that's what the new Lord for White Lions was as well. It doesn't say what it is in here. What was
Yeah.
the character called? Cretan Chieftain. So I think
yeah.
that's also going to be a 75 point upgrade. I wonder if that can be a BSB as well. I'm more excited about that. Like, although I guess a 75 point.
He does give them evasive and fire and flee.
That's cool. That's cool. I like in the current game, you're probably not fire and fleeing because you fall back in good order and you don't auto rally, so you just get caught and sad times. Evasive is cool, but again, you don't move very far. What's interesting to me is the Sea Guard Garrison Commander. If it can take 75 points of items, is this something that's worth putting as like a BSB on a Skycutter Chariot? Is it better to tool this up a little
Beef
bit
him
more?
up, yeah.
I'm assuming it's sort of like a midpoint in terms of stats as well, so maybe it's 3 wounds with 3 attacks. I'm not sure. So I'm very interested to see how that shapes up. And then we've got Ishaya Vess with a 15-inch command range despite being on foot, and it's AP -1 to shooting in close combat, which is very cool.
Okay, so she doesn't have to give it out to the unit that she's in. That would imply.
You know what? Maybe, actually.
Is that an aura of AP -1?
It says the unit of. I'm assuming it's a unit she's joined. If you ignore the rules, evasive makes you immune to artillery. Smiley face.
If you ignore the rules. There's a big caveat there, Matty.
We've also got the Trace Army of Infamy with fewer details removed, but the army has much wider access to move through cover. Move through cover is just good to have, depending on your, how you play. A lot of the games I play, woods are dangerous, so this is nice. Similar to Wood Elves, the army has the ability to place a wood on the board. That's cool. Foot units can optionally take Lion Cloaks, and Lion Cloaks are +1 to non-magical shooting, to your save against non-magical shooting, which is solid. A new unit of skirmishing infantry, we know about this one. This is a core unit, 0 to 1 unit per 1,000 as White Lions taken in core, all good stuff. Lions can be taken as their own as a core choice. I thought they were in special, but they are T4 1 wound war beasts. It'll be interesting to see what their output is, because that's not particularly exciting. I'm not expecting them to have a good save, so I want to see what their points are and what their output is.
Just chaffy stuff, I suppose, don't they?
Yeah. SCBM says 2 wounds. 2 wounds would make sense, because if you look at Saber Tusks, they have a very sort of similar build to what you'd expect. They're a Sabertooth Lion, or Sabertooth Tiger, I should say. They're T4 with 2 wounds, and obviously Flesh Hounds are 2 wounds as well. So I'd be much happier if they were 2 wounds. No Lion Cav, I think we knew that was coming, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've alluded to that really. Yeah.
White Lions can be upgraded to Lion Guard. No details were shared. I think this is just that there is an upgraded version of Lion Guard. Not that
they're going to have what?
Yeah, I think it's
pip
different.
Of weapon skill, pip of maybe strength or toughness, better armor, maybe, if you're lucky.
Sure. Jalub says, pretty sure that was with regard to the Sea Guard Commander. That would make sense, yeah. So we're still looking at 1 wound on the
One wound war beasts, yeah.
2 wounds for the Sea Guard character, 1 for the Lions. Yeah, that's fair. Sisters of Avalon can be taken in the army. That fits. I don't know about thematically. I guess if you're sort of like in the woods, it makes sense. But they are a good skirmishing unit.
Pretty stuff's happening.
Placed based on the chariot stat line, the lines would be 2 attacks, weapon skill 5, strength 4 on output. Which it's going to be with hand weapons. They're going to have no AP, and that's just not.
Meh.
It's just not enough to do anything. They need to have at least AP1, and AP2 would be incredible. But yeah, I don't.
What can you give the commander for 75 points that would make him pretty killy?
Well, depends what you get in the book. There was a 75-point magic item that we were just talking about, which makes all casting -1 and all dispelling -1 within.
So maybe turn 1, you just yeet him up the board.
Yeah. Maybe
as far as possible, trying to affect their casters, but not yours.
yeah. I could see that. I don't know if there was anything else in here that was particularly added, but yeah, interesting stuff. Obviously, we're all frothing for high elf information. I'm very keen to see. Anulian Crystal, yeah, Demo, thanks. And Kola says, white sword for chieftain on a chariot. White sword's one of those no stats but killing blow, I believe, if I remember correctly. I'm
2 attacks.
yeah, I'd be more keen to put it on a wizard who's going illusion to try and get those, like, fish for those 6s. That would be more my speed, I think. But yeah, that's some interesting stuff. Any thoughts on what we've seen that we haven't already covered?
Look, I mean, I was going in for the Sea Guard anyway, so there's nothing here that's changed that. I would. The level 4 is always annoying because it is always useful to have. It feels like something you just need.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll play around with it, won't we? We'll see what comes of it.
Absolutely.
The infantry will be good to use, and they look stunning as well. So I think there's
some of the best models. Just
100%.
Yeah, incredible stuff. I'm really looking forward to painting some. Like,
just trying to work out whether my bases should be on ships or whether they should be on like beaches.
Ooh.
And you could have like your first 2 ranks in the water, then rank after that is like the breaking of the waves, and then you have sand after that. But that would involve you making sure you leave all of your Sea Guard in exactly the same ranks as when you started. You don't play around with the drills.
I think you don't do that purely because that's a unit that you will want to change this sea.
It look really cool when you're deploying them, and after that, it just look like a hot mess.
Yeah, I reckon. Is there any chance that you'd be wanting to do a Tracian army at some point? Is there a risk that you'd want to do that, and the the ship bases would maybe not work as well for them?
Good point.
Because you can have sandy forests.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the way forwards.
Yeah, you could be right there. Although, I mean, I definitely know I want Cathay, so I don't know how far I'm going to get into the High Elves before, so before I move over. But I'm thinking ahead of myself anyway. I've got lots of undead to do, so slap on the wrist. Finish your army, Lewis. Come on.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we have got to the Close Order podcast questions. It is that time. We've got to the end of the podcast. And if you are a channel member of, I believe, Longbeard or higher, you are able to ask questions in the podcast questions chat on the Discord. We do have some questions here. We have 3 questions, in fact, all from Winslow. And then we've got one in YouTube chat as well. So I'll start you off with, first question. Winslow says, I've been seeing more events run with an emphasis on objective scoring, typically allowing 4 to 5 battle points to be scored per game solely by completing said objectives. I found this makes scenarios more fun and offers some minor yet interesting considerations for list construction. I haven't seen many events go all in, where you get points only from objectives. What are your thoughts on this as an option for the old world events? Similarly, what do you think about scoring restrictions, such as allowing only infantry to hold an objective, or no flyers/monsters holding objectives? Do you want to go first on this one?
Yes, there's a couple of things in there. And actually, I think one of the interesting points that I've seen happening a few old world events is the fact that scoring the objectives changes your battle point score rather than just gives you victory points. So it's not like scoring an objective gives you 100 points. It actually changes that 20-0 ratio. It just adds points onto that. So it's something, because obviously the point of that differential scoring is that the amount you beat your opponent by, that determines the size of the victory. So to fiddle around with that effectively after you've done your victory points, I think is an interesting way to do it, because you could end up with people scoring weird numbers of battle points, so it's not always out of 20, if you know what I mean. It's not 10-10 through to 20-0. So you can mess around with that, which I think is interesting. And that just seems to be something that people are accepting.
I thought people were just doing it as extra victory points. Is that not what you've been seeing?
No, I think that's what Winslow's just saying. It actually adds battle points onto...
I don't know if he's saying it specifically causes battle points to be added, or just that it effectively...
Oh, well, at the Australian events, I've seen that happen at the Australian events anyway. Okay. They seem to do that, where if you're holding the thing at the end, you're winning 12-8, you then win 14-8.
Sure. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
I think I'd rather just have it be victory points and just have it change the differential. That's like a super clean way to do it. Yeah. I don't see any real reason not to do it that way. How do I feel about it?
It does. Mm-hmm. I was going to say it does effectively moving towards with those missions that give a significant percentage of the score, regardless of how whether it's scored after you've done your 20 O's or before,
Yeah.
towards secondary objectives. So we're in a situation where we're probably getting a primary/secondary scoring system going, which you could go back to a stream that we did probably a year ago, where I suggested that might be something to go more down the 40k route of having primary, secondary as your mission scoring metric. So it's interesting that we think the community seems to want to move towards that, or there's discussion around moving towards that as an idea. Because if we do get down that route, I think we've got systems ready to deploy from other game systems that could transfer across with some tweaks. And you take the 40k example just because it's the game I know, but you get you score your game out of 100, you get 50 points for your primary, which is for how many points of your opponents you kill, and then 40 points for your secondary, which is for the amount of objectives you hold, for example, and then 10 points for being painted, or whether you do that or not, so up to you. But so yeah, it's interesting. Although I'm also in a world where people seem to really enjoy still playing the kill points system, so I think we're probably still in the age of the game yet where we don't need to fiddle around with that too much.
Well,
I'm
as I
seeing,
understand
massive demand for crazy missions.
As I understand it, fantasy's always been kill points, so I don't see any need to move away from that. I don't necessarily hate the idea of adding some objectives. I don't want it to become a major thing. I'm more of just a purist. I'd rather have it played the way that it is. But I'm also not in favour of comp. I had someone leave me a message saying that they thought I seemed like the sort of person who was in favour of comp, which I'm not sure how they got to that conclusion. But I think it's a game that Games Workshop is supporting and making tweaks on, so I'd rather play it the way that it is being played. I have very little faith in the community to write good comp. I've looked at various comps, and every bit of comp that I've seen for Old World so far has had some level of issues. The problem with comp is it's just how one person or a group of people agree that the game should be played, which doesn't mean that it's right. It just means that it's how they want to play the game.
It's just different. You just create a different meta, don't you? So something else that's not currently good becomes good, and you end up, it's just a reciprocal situation, isn't it, with different things at the top of the pile instead of others. So
sure, it's more that people are good at determining what is too good and very bad at coming up with correct solutions. But so the context of that is, I think TOs, if they want to pull a lever to change how the game is played, something like objectives and not necessarily allowing certain units to score them is a way that you can tweak the game. Like, you might still take a dragon because it's super efficient, but it might not be able to score objectives because, there's a restriction for that. I don't have strong opinions on that currently. I'd have to play them to see how that goes. But I think it's an interesting lever that you can pull, and I'm more in favour of that than comp packs.
Yeah, and I think ultimately you're in a position where there's a lot of dragons that can quite happily pick up 1,000 points of your opponent's army.
Yeah.
So if you're going to try and build an objective scoring system that is going to materially impact your desire to take that particular unit, you're going to have to score a lot of points for secondaries. It's going to have to be somewhere near 50% of the score before people. I don't know. I think you can pretty reliably.
I don't think a dragon picks up 1,000 points of models. Like if we're being reasonable, not against a player who's being competent.
Well, I think looking at the two dwarf games you played at the weekend, get dragons behind it just eats its way through your opponent's army.
But it did take me all game and multi-charging with the cult. Like, I put my entire army into his entire army, and then I came out on top. There are the things that you can pick off quickly are typically lower point things, at which point, as long as you're not allowing yourself to overrun. Yes, dragons are still a problem. They can score a lot, but I don't think it's realistic to say that you can score 1,000 points.
But you've got to think, how many points would you need to be able to score from your secondaries before you say, what, I'm not going to take this massively powerful unit? You're going to have to skew your objectives so far in the scoring system.
I don't think you have to skew it a lot. I think you could make it, 20% of the scoring or something like that, add an additional 200 to 400 points or something. That makes a meaningful difference. Because, anyway, that's a topic for a full discussion at some point, I'm sure. Question 2. I was at an event last weekend where I worked to get my army to a 3-colour standard, knowing I wouldn't be winning painting prizes, but happy to have gotten the basics done. Then at the event, I found several armies with not even 3 colours and or basing completed, the stated minimum for the event. The TO didn't do anything, which isn't a huge deal as it was a smallish event, but still a bit frustrating. Mostly for Lewis, have you run into times where someone shows up to your event but doesn't meet the minimum painting requirements, and what is your approach?
So this hasn't happened in Old World yet because I have been very gradually increasing the painting requirement event by event. So we are in a situation where it's made clear in the event pack that fully painted isn't requirement just yet. We're getting there. We're working towards it. After each event, we add more restrictions in. And in 40k, it has not happened to me yet, but I think the competitive scene in 40k is a bit more established, so there are pretty well understood community-wide do's and don'ts when it comes to that sort of thing, and people understand their obligations in respect to that. And actually in 40k, 10% of your score requires you to be painted, so it's very easy option for a TO if you haven't brought a painted army to say, okay, you are restricted minus 10% on all your scores for the rest of the event, and you can go like that. That's usually the simplest.
Because it's difficult. You don't really want to have to kick someone out if you can avoid it. That's a fairly nuclear option. But
100%. But then you are, from a player's perspective as well, you're paying, they're not cheap, these events. So you're paying sort of 60 plus quid for a weekend. And if you're the one that's put all of that effort into your army, and then you're playing against someone that hasn't bothered, sometimes potentially even just them losing 10% of their score is not enough to balance off the fact that you've turned up and you're playing against grey plastic, which you could do week in, week out of the clubs that people play at, can't they? So I could see how it would be frustrating for sure. But yeah, thankfully not an issue I've had to deal with 40k, and in Old World we're not there yet.
Very good. Very good. None of the events I've been at, I don't think have had particular issues. What if they don't like the painting? Yeah, I've played against armies that have had less paint on the models than maybe I would think was suitable, but not to a point of an issue. But then
exactly, and that is a really important balance, because some people just, no offense, aren't very good at painting. It's not something they enjoy spending their time on. They don't want to put lots of effort into it because it's not how they get their value for their hobby. So you don't want to penalize people for bad painting. I think those individuals that are coming to events, we just need to agree as a community if that's something that we're going to be doing. And once we all feel, in Saffron specifically, once we all feel like we're ready for that, once we've got that paint standard in there, the expectation is people follow it. And if you don't like painting, unfortunately, that is kind of a big part of the hobby. So you're going to have to slog through it to get it done.
Instead of buying 3 of those merworms, mate, if you pay someone to commission paint your army, you'll be better off. There's the loophole for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
hopefully merworms are bad, and you have the disposable income to do that.
And obviously nowadays as well, there's so many tools available to hobbyists, especially newer hobbyists or hobbyists that don't have the time to put in that kind of effort to getting a really high quality army. The contrast paints are there, all the different coloured sprays are there. Like you can spray an army a certain colour and contrast paint over it, and that contrast paint does your base coat, wash and highlight in one go. I mean, it's going to look like it's been contrast painted, but actually fundamentally, if you get the right colour roughly in the right places, you can do an army very quickly. As you've proven, Ed, you can turn out armies quite fast if you put your mind to it. And you don't need to spend a million hours painting, and actually using some of those kind of nice, simple tips and tricks to get an army ready, it can still look perfectly passable on the battlefield.
You may have heard it's not like a super mainstream video. You might have managed to miss it. There's a video called Slap Chop. It's a good guide if you want to learn to paint things quickly while looking a decent tabletop standard. Be a recommendation. Yeah, dry brushing and contrast paints are 2 great ways to get models on a table pretty quickly, especially if you've got like a couple of rattle cans. If you've got like a black and a grey, or like, you want to paint your models red, so you do like spray them grey and then you do the red top down, and you get just some nice directional paint with basically little to no effort and very little skill needed. You just spray at an angle. It's a good way to make a start, and then you can just go
100%.
from there. Dry brush some
loads of little tips and tricks like that. So I think there's not a huge once if you're going to an event that's got that as the requirement, I don't think there's many excuses to not do it.
Absolutely. All right. And third question, how realistic do you think it is that we will see points rebalancing prior to a new edition? It's been discussed a lot since it happens in 40k, but I'm skeptical they'll make mid-edition balance changes with a specialist game like the Old World. You start off with this one.
This is interesting because you can see it with Necromunda and Kill Team and even Horus Heresy to some respects. They are specialist games. They're very much specialist games, and they haven't come from a main game system before, and that's how they've been operated. But you look at Old World, and yes, it's being made by a specialist design studio. You're never going to get away from that fact. But some of the release kind of style with the arcane journals, effectively codexes, and some of that kind of action would suggest there is a main studio influence in there somewhere, or at least they're aping the main studio. And actually, it's probably, I don't have any stats to back this up. It's probably being picked up by enough people that, it's not approaching 40k or Sigmar, but it is at least taking that kind of mainstream in the hobby. It's taking its place amongst those main games, which would indicate that a similar balanced approach to what we know has worked so well in 40k in terms of points adjustments and rules adjustments mid-edition. There's no reason why they shouldn't. There's no reason why. It's been tried and tested in their main game systems. It works very well. This game is approaching main game sort of status in terms of the engagement with it and the amount of people that are getting involved with it. So I think it would be of benefit to the community and to Games Workshop in terms of sales and things like that if they did that. So I would personally be in support of it, and I would have thought that if, regardless of whatever this relationship is between specialist game studio and main game studio, whatever it is, I don't understand the politics, but you would thought that some learning would have crossed between the two, and they'll have realised that there's benefit in doing this and keeping these balance updates regular and keeping them points related. Even if they're not going to be every couple of weeks like doing 40k, but there's no reason why they can't do it semi-regularly.
Cool. I don't think we'll see big points rebalances. But I think we might see some worst offenders love talent.
Yeah, I mean, does it need big points balances? Because, I mean, you can make dragons even more expensive if you want, but they're already pretty pricey. Yeah. There's some infantry that could come down, but I don't think you need massive sweeping changes to everything, do you?
No, I don't know if we'll see changes to dragons. Maybe magic items are something that we could see tweaked. Like all of the things that are taken in every army get changed.
Yeah. You could look at those.
Blade is maybe too cheap for what it does compared to everything else in the game, which doesn't mean that it's too expensive. It's just everything else is too bad.
Yeah, but, and like if there's like key parts of main armies that don't see play or are objectively bad or objectively out of whack, say Empire State troops, for example, they're just so much more expensive than other equivalent infantry. So could you drop them by a couple points?
I think that's probably out of the scope of what we'll see. I think we're just going to see the worst, like the things that are too oppressive. Like I'd expect maybe Pegasus Knights to get touched, but I'm not sure I'd expect much else. A dozen of things maybe get tweaked, just the worst offenders. I don't think the things that are bad will get changed. I can't see that happening, but we'll see.
Striffy in the chat. I run the Saffron Fantasy Slam. You can find us online. We play a little venue in Essex, which is in the east of England. I don't know where you are, Striffy, but we're in the east of England. We have an event in a couple of weeks. You'd be more than welcome to join. And if you are a channel member, I don't know if you are a channel member, but you do get 10% off. So hit me up on Discord, as they say.
Only if you're a channel member for that. Otherwise, what's the website that people can go to?
If you literally just look for Elmo Miniatures online or just literally Google Saffron Slam, it should come straight up for you.
Absolutely, and I will edit that into the description for. It'll take a couple of minutes, but if you're watching this, later on down the line, you'll be able to see that is in the chat there, and you'll be able to pick up.
I do have an exciting new sponsor as well, Ed.
Oh, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, so if you watched an episode, what would it have been about just before Christmas, I think. We did a bit of a fun episode on which army builder you should choose to build your old world armies. And this was before I had this sponsor, but I did some relentless shilling for Second in Command, which is my personal favourite army builder for the old world. I think it has all the features of the others now, and it's just better, in my opinion. It does cost £2 though, so you have to spend some money. But the dev reached out to me and asked if he could become the sort of official army builder of the Saffron Slam. So what we're going to do, I'm not going to force everybody to use Second in Command, but we are going to have a little special prize for everyone that's built their army in the at the Saffron Slam. Using his army builder will be entered into a prize draw to win a big battalion box. So he's going to be supporting the event. So you'll see the Second in Command logo on my event pack and things like that. So big thanks to him. Very much appreciate the support.
Exciting stuff. And how many tickets are remaining for the Saffron Fantasy Slam?
I think we've sold 18 now, so we've still got 10 left. So still got a way to go. It's been a bit slower to sell this one, but this is the first 2-day one, and I know sometimes jumping up from 1 to 2 days can be a challenge for people. So we just see how we go. But I think we're in the point where we've got a decent number, and it should be a really, really, really positive event, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can see here, it is February 22nd until February 23rd. And if I click buttons, apparently it opens Google Maps. So that is only 3 weeks away now. Plenty of time to get your army up to scratch. Get that. Because what are the painting minimums on this one?
It's painting minimums. Get everything built. Get everything sprayed, undercoated. That's the key. So you don't need to paint anything. You just need it all to be built and sprayed. So no grey plastic is the rule.
Fantastic stuff. All right, lovely. Well, I think that takes us to the end. Any last thoughts before we go?
No, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll get